The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
Recognizing our service members in the military is important, not just during Military Appreciation Month, but every month. We speak with a couple of the women who help with the care packages that OOIDA sends out to our troops. To take part in Mission Military Appreciation, just go to OOIDA.com and click on Become a Member. You can join or renew your membership for a discounted rate, and 10% of that will go into the Truckers for Troops Fund, with OOIDA matching that money. Also on today's program, FMCSA is undertaking a project to alert the general public about sharing the road with large trucks. I'll discuss that and more with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. And finally, ELDs have long been unpopular with many truckers, but Marty Ellis says some truckers are trying to cope in a not-so-proper way, and one way station has figured that out. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. The leader of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency appeared before a Senate subcommittee on Wednesday to explain his department's fiscal budget request, but spent a good deal of time defending its emission rules. EPA Administrator Michael Regan took heat from GOP senators serving on the Committee on Environment and Public Works. Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming told Regan that she had been disappointed with the direction of the EPA since he became administrator in 2021.
Given your background in state government, I really held a measure of hope that you would lead the EPA with policies that were grounded in reality and in the states and maintain a healthy perspective of the hardworking American families who work and live under your rules and regulations. But that hasn't happened. People in Wyoming are struggling with rising prices in every area of their lives. And what the policy prescriptions do, and what we see from the EPA and this administration, is a torrent of regulation that you know will lead to scarcity and higher costs.
Earlier this year, the EPA issued final rules that apply new emission standards for light vehicles and heavy-duty trucks. According to EPA, the final truck emission standards will avoid about 1 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions from 2027 through 2055. The federal government also claims that the heavy-duty industry will see annualized savings of $3.5 billion compared to annualized costs of about $1.1 billion. Republicans in the House and Senate recently introduced Congressional Review Act resolutions to dismantle the final rules on light vehicles and heavy-duty trucks. Lummis, a co-sponsor of both resolutions, said the EPA is overstepping with regulations that force the general public and motor carriers to move toward electric vehicles.
It's astonishing that the federal government is telling Americans what kind of vehicles to drive and pushing an agenda that doesn't work outside of major urban areas.
Opponents of the mandates point to technological concerns, a lack of a charging infrastructure, and the cost. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma also criticized the EPA's diesel exhaust fluid regulations.
You talk about trying to have better fuel efficiency, but yet the rule that you guys put on diesel trucks, which I drive every day, by making us put diesel exhaust fluid into it, it runs our gas mileage down and actually is worse for the environment.
The White House has requested an $11 billion budget for the EPA in 2025, up 20% from the current fiscal year. Meanwhile, truck leasing company Ryder has put together a new report that raises concerns about electric vehicle mandates. Ryder analyzed the potential economic impacts of state and federal requirements that are aimed at converting commercial diesel vehicles to zero direct emission vehicles. The report said making the business case for EVs for most payload and mileage applications is, quote, extremely challenging. For example, Ryder found that the total annual cost to transport by EV versus diesel would be up across the board from about 5% for light-duty transit to more than double for heavy-duty tractors. Aside from added costs, Ryder also pointed to possible disruptions in our nation's supply chains and inflationary pressures on all products moved by trucks. The Energy Information Administration expects steady fuel prices through the third quarter of this year. Cuts to OPEC Plus crude oil production and ongoing geopolitical risks will result in a Brent crude oil spot price around $90 a barrel for the rest of this year, according to EIA. In 2025, EIA expects that price to decrease to $85 a barrel. The national average price per gallon of diesel dropped from $3.97 in the first quarter of 2024 to $3.93 in the second quarter. EIA expects that price to hold steady through the third quarter before increasing to around $4.13 a gallon by the end of this year. A rulemaking aimed at taking drunk and distracted drivers off the road received thousands of comments, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg told a Senate subcommittee. In January, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration published an advance notice of proposed rulemaking that would require impaired driving prevention technology on new passenger vehicles. It does not apply to commercial motor vehicles. During the Senate's Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Subcommittee hearing on May 2nd, Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia asked Secretary Buttigieg about the rulemaking's progress.
I'm eager to see these promising technologies in new cars starting in 2026, as the IIJA has required. I understand that the comments received have been robust, and I hope that this is a top priority for NHTSA, as this action will save thousands of lives and make roadways safer.
Buttigieg said that NHTSA will need to finish reviewing all the comments that came in before moving forward with the next stage of the rulemaking process. Comments range from support and concern to outright opposition.
There were about 18,000 comments that were received. So NHTSA is reviewing those. Of course, that's both the right thing to do and legally required of us. And we do need to make sure that we balance all of the different concerns that are in play, but do it in a way that at the end of the day meets our safety mission. So they will continue to work through those comments, and every intention and expectation is of a prompt rulemaking here. Of course, we also need to make sure there's good understanding of how the technologies will be put into play in practice, knowing that it's one thing to have a technology available or prototyped, another to mandate it across the U.S.
According to NHTSA, more than 13,000 people were killed in drunk driving crashes in 2021. NHTSA said that several technologies have the potential to detect impairments such as alcohol, drowsiness, and distraction. The amount of freight carried by the for-hire transportation industry fell 1.2% in March compared to February. That's according to the Freight Transportation Services Index, or TSI, compiled by the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. The drop was attributed to seasonal adjusted decreases. The Freight TSI measures the month-to-month changes in for-hire freight shipments by mode of transportation in tons and ton miles, which are combined into one index. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will hold a hearing May 15th into the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. The focus will be on efforts to rebuild the bridge, which collapsed on March 26th. Federal lawmakers want to know what it's going to cost, how long it'll take, and what challenges they're likely to face. No word yet on who's expected to testify at that hearing. Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul Wiedefeld recently told a local radio station he expects the rebuild to take about 4 years and cost upwards of $1.9 billion. And finally, in the market for an SUV-sized Radio Flyer red wagon that tops out at 60 miles an hour, well, you're in luck. There's one up for auction right now. UPI reports that Judy Foster decided to sell the unique vehicle after the death of her husband, who used the chassis of a 1976 Mazda pickup truck to create the Radio Flyer car about 14 years ago. The wagon car is now being auctioned online by Alaska Premier Auctions and Appraisals as part of its Mother's Day Classic Car Auction. The listing states the vehicle is fully road legal. Bidding is open through Sunday. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, Ashley Blackford discusses OOIDA's efforts on behalf of the troops with Norita Taylor and Nikki Johnson. I'll cover an FMCSA effort to alert the public about driving around big trucks with OOIDA's Jay Grimes, and we'll hear from Marty Ellis of the Spirit of the American Trucker. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Get the most power and performance out of your rig with Howe's Diesel Defender. It provides maximum lubricity and contains specialized IDX4 detergent to clean and prevent deposits and safely removes harmful water. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
Attention professional drivers, do you owe money to the IRS? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. Call for help now, 855-976-4291. That's 855-976-4291.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. May is National Military Appreciation Month. In honor of this, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association is showing its support by doing a 2-week campaign. To discuss the campaign and what the association does for our military, Norita Taylor joins me. She is the Director of Public Relations, and Nikki Johnson with OOIDA's Marketing Department are both here. Thank you, ladies, for coming in.
Hey, we're just thrilled to be here.
Glad to have you. Norita, I'm going to start with you. We've been talking about this campaign all week, but for our listeners who might be just tuning in, what is OOIDA doing during Military Appreciation Month?
Sure. So this is basically the same thing we do each November during Veterans Day week, where we raise funds for care packages and for veterans group homes. And basically, all you have to do is join or renew. That's all you have to do. Donations are always welcome, but, this is about encouraging people to join and knowing that some of the funds that they are that they're paying towards their fee is not only going to be some of that's going to be put towards the care packages, 10% will go towards care packages, but it's also going to be matched by the association. So it's a win-win, join and renew, and we're going to help out veterans and those serving overseas.
Now, OOIDA has always had strong ties to the military. Many members, board members, employees have served. Nikki, can you talk to me about why there's such a strong connection and why it's so important that the association, that we honor the men and women who have served and who are serving?
So many of our members are veterans. We have many employees that are also veterans. So we feel very strongly about that. There's a great tie there with the trucking industry.
Now, many of our listeners will be familiar with Truckers for Troops, as you mentioned, Norita. Can you explain to me what that is for those who don't know?
Sure. So Truckers for Troops is a campaign that we are doing during the month of May as part of Military Appreciation Month. And it also leads up to Armed Forces Day, which was put in place by President Harry Truman, who also is from our area. And there's a nice museum down the street commemorating him. But anyway, Truckers for Troops raises funds for care packages for those serving overseas. And also we take some of those funds and we put it towards the Veterans Community Program, which mainly has a residential campus with tiny homes for homeless veterans, but they also do tons of other services for all veterans. They have a commissary. They have all kinds of other services they provide to anyone who has served.
Now, during the 2-week campaign, truckers can join or renew, as you mentioned, for a special discount. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that and what membership is, how much it costs?
Sure. So membership is normally $45 per year, but during the campaign, we discount that to $35. So you're already getting a discount on your 1-year membership fee, and then 10% of that is going to go towards care packages. And like I said, we're going to match that here to those dollars. So it's a win-win. And basically, if you just join or renew, and you can help everybody out that way.
And I know our listeners, if they were tuning in yesterday, they heard Mark Rettig and a few OOIDA employees talk about membership and all that it offers. It kind of blows my mind that it is only typically $45 down to $35. Narita, talk to me. That's a deal.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, I'm sitting here like shaking my head in big circles while she's talking about that. When I think about so many other, professional associations and what they charge for membership and what you get in return, and then there's ours, which is incredible what you can get. There's all kinds of benefits that you can get for being a member that hopefully they probably covered those off with you. But basically, yes, we are here fighting for your rights. We have advocacy. We have other benefits on the other side, corporate benefits, all kinds of things, rebates, discounts, all kinds of things, a fuel card that you can take advantage of, all kinds of things that I just can't believe what you get for that 1-year membership.
And if you are wondering more of what that is, you can go on Landline Media YouTube page and watch that interview there. Now, part of the Truckers for Troops is providing care packages to veterans who are serving. Nikki, can you I know you've worked here for a couple of years.
Just a few.
Just a few. Can you take me back to when this first started and kind of how the idea all came about?
Oh, my gosh. It was quite an overwhelming process. But if I remember correctly, there was some discussion about how many veterans that we do have in the industry and how, the trucking industry is full of veterans. And we thought, why not try to send packages overseas to our active military? And we had hoped we would bring in maybe $5,000. So I think we brought in between $60,000, right around there. So we were completely overwhelmed with, now we have all of this money.
What do we do with it?
Exactly. But we had an overwhelming response of care packages, addresses for recipients to go overseas. A lot of our members have family, friends, even some of our employees have family members. So it was quite an undertaking, but so much fun and very rewarding.
And for these care packages, can you describe what they are? Like, we're not talking like a little shoebox with, a few items. Talk to me about what the care packages look like.
These boxes are about 18 by 16 by 16. So they're about 70 pounds. Enough for sharing to about 10 to 12 people. We provide anything from snacks to games to toiletry items that maybe they can't get while they're overseas. Just anything to make life more comfortable for them.
And it's important to note, now you're always looking for someone who is serving overseas that would like a care package. How does that work? How does that information get to you?
Yes. They can obviously phone us, or they can also email us at troops@ooida.com, and we'll be sure and get that care package out to them.
I think it was before I started working here, a friend of mine knew I'd applied, and he said, "Oh, man, that's the place that sent me the care package." He was serving overseas, and he's like, that was the best care package could have ever gotten. Had so much fun with it.
It's great.
Did we get a picture of him and his care package? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a picture of it. We've talked to him before, though.
Okay, that's fantastic.
But yeah, he's always just singing OOIDA's praises for that. So definitely meant a lot. And one thing I find interesting is how you decide what goes into it. You actually want to hear from servicemen and women, right?
We do. Over the years, we've heard from multiple service people, things that they can't get overseas or something that they just crave. Some things are actually useful. They said, we need certain things to help with doing our job while we're over there, or just cleaning the guns, something so simple as Q-tips. So we try to fulfill those things to make them have a part of home over there.
Yeah, things that we might think, well, they might like that.
Yes.
Might not be what they need. What are some things that kind of surprised you over the years that people requested or people wanted?
Oh, goodness. Fruit. So we have sent over the little fruit cocktail, individual packages, peanut butter, hot sauce, things to make those MREs taste a little bit better.
Yes.
Just seasonings, nuts, protein. They like a lot of those protein bars or nuts, just a variety of those. Beef jerky is always a huge one.
Yeah.
Sometimes candy. They like to pass out those things also to the kids overseas. So while they can partake, it's also good for them to hand those things out.
The friend of mine I mentioned, I think he had said socks. Socks were such a big thing. And he's like, we were so happy to get socks. And I think he too, would hand stuff out to the kids and stuff.
Yes, I had forgotten about socks.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Can't forget the socks.
No,
Can't forget the socks.
Something we take for granted.
Exactly. Now, there's, of course, a push for the campaign because it's Military Appreciation Month. And then again, in November, we'll be talking about this again. But Norita, we do raise money year-round for this. Is that right?
That's right. Donations are welcome all the time. It's just that, we try to do a campaign. We've added this additional campaign because we know that there is a demand out there for care packages, and we want to raise awareness, get more addresses. We really, really can use more addresses, as many as you can throw at us as possible. In my research, I was like, what is out there, that who else is providing this kind of service? And we may have a pretty niche audience, but we provide these for anybody. It's not just people who are members or know a member. It's for anyone who makes the request. So that's my big shout out here is if you know someone serving overseas, please let them know about us and send some information to the email that Nikki rattled off earlier, troops@ooida.com.
Now, of course, some of the donation money goes towards these care packages, but also the Veterans Community Project, which you mentioned. For those who aren't aware, talk to me a little bit about what they do.
Sure. The Veterans Community Project, it's headquartered here in Kansas City, but they are a national organization. They do have other locations like in Colorado, and I think they're going to sprout up in Oklahoma and some other states. So their plan is to have at least one location in each state. And they have a campus with tiny houses for homeless veterans, but they also provide other types of outreach services, job searches, therapy, a commissary, just all kinds of things that they do. And here's the big thing that I want people to know about them that makes them so unique and so important is that they allow the residents at the tiny houses to keep their pets. And again, back to what Nikki said about things we take for granted.
Yes.
That's a big one that they decided to do early on because they knew that sometimes homeless individuals will choose to not seek any kind of permanent shelter or transitioning phase of shelter because they don't want to give up their dog or cat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of these people would have such a strong connection. I mean, everyone has a strong connection to their pet,
right.
I think it's safe to say. But, going through all that they've been through, there is a strong connection there. So there's, important that they can stay together.
Yes.
And being in these tiny homes, talk to me about the setup with those, how they help. And then when they move on, I believe they get to keep everything that was in the home. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So basically, the tiny homes are intended as a transition to permanent housing outside the campus. And it costs a lot of money, not just to build the tiny home itself, but they rotate out the appliances and some of the furnishings. They allow those residents to keep that stuff when they do move out, which is usually 9 months to a year later. And so it's important that they do keep replenishing and donating. They always have a high demand for all kinds of, either small appliances and furnishings. And the good news is that the residents get to keep those and take them with them when they finally do move on to more permanent housing.
Definitely setting them up for success. Now, if anyone is listening, wants more information, wants to join or make a donation, how can they do that?
They can always call 800-444-5791. Or you can also go to www.ooida.com and you can renew or join online.
All right, wonderful. Norita and Nikki, thank you so much.
Hey,
thank
I love
you.
doing it.
Yes.
For more information, again, you can visit ooida.com, click on the Truckers for Troops under the menu tab, or call OOIDA at 816-229-5791. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to Prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
This week, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is undertaking a project designed to help alert the general public about sharing the road with large trucks. Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm Mark Rettig. I'm joined, as always, by OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, thanks for joining me.
Good to be with you.
Well, glad to have you here. This thing is called Our Roads, Our Safety Week, another one of those names that doesn't really tell you what it's about. So, runs this week through Saturday. What's involved in this effort? What is it basically?
Yeah, so Our Roads, Our Safety is a partnership really led by FMCSA, but really with a lot of cooperation and participation from a whole lot of different industry stakeholder groups, including a lot of trucking industry representatives, safety representatives, pedestrian bicyclist groups, really a whole across-the-board effort. Really designed to promote education for passenger vehicles, for bicyclists, for pedestrians, on how to operate safely when they're driving close by to large commercial trucks and buses. And this has really been an effort, I think, that got started maybe about 5 years ago, and it's really come a long way since then. And I think this is really a culmination of the effort so far this week, really a week-long highlight of the program, outreach, a lot of public relations materials that are being put out there. So hopefully the public is listening and can take some notes. I know yesterday DOT held kind of an awareness day in Washington that featured some large trucks, some buses at DOT headquarters, some information booths set up, really hopes of improving safety and really kind of helping drivers operate safely around these vehicles that certainly operate different than your standard automobile.
We have other events that are designed with similar goals in mind, and I think of CVSA's Operation Safe Driver as one example. FMCSA always points out that their primary mission is commercial motor vehicle safety. Why are they focusing on other drivers?
Well, I think it's for a few different reasons. One, when you look at the crashes involving large trucks and buses, the overwhelming majority of those crashes ended up being caused by the non-CMV driver in that cases. And, unfortunately, when you look at the fatalities and injuries resulting from large truck and bus crashes, the majority of those injuries and fatalities are folks who aren't in that commercial motor vehicle. And I think another part of this is that when FMCSA is meeting with other agencies, hearing from folks, hearing from constituents, the general public clearly, might not understand how the commercial motor vehicles operate. So there's a lot we can do in educating the general public about the trucking industry, about the bus industry, what kind of just simple things, simple reminders that the general public should be aware of when they're on the highway, whether that's the longer stopping distances for commercial motor vehicles, larger blind spots, making sure you're making your own car more visible in those blind spots. If you're out on your bike, if you're walking in a neighborhood, making yourself visible through different methods. So really just trying to engage folks who may not have the background or knowledge of how commercial motor vehicles work and just really trying to spread the word on how to improve safety.
What sort of information? You mentioned the PR materials and what they're pushing out. What sort of information is FMCSA offering to other drivers? You mentioned some of it there. And how are they delivering that information? Because, with an event in D.C., it's got kind of a limited audience.
Yeah, social media, I think, has been the main outlet they've used. In D.C., they've got posters in metro stops, bus stops all around D.C. So I think they're still kind of building up kind of the regional and national outreach through Our Roads, Our Safety. I know they've done a lot of campaigns using bus drivers, using truck drivers to kind of explain how other drivers can be helpful when they're on the roads. And it's going to continue to increase efforts, national radio campaigns, television campaigns. So there's a whole host of different ways that FMCSA is kind of conducting the outreach, but they've got all sorts of tips, really just different short messages that hopefully the public can listen to and really put into practice when they're behind the wheel themselves and out on the roads.
You mentioned that they've been going about this for about 5 years or so, roughly.
Yep.
How have their results been in the past? Does FMCSA think they're making a dent in all of this?
It's really difficult to tell. I don't think we've seen kind of overall the reduction in large trucks and bus-related fatalities and crashes. Those numbers throughout the last couple of years have ticked down a little bit, but we really haven't made a dent overall. And, that's for a whole host of reasons when you talk about highway safety policy, trucking regulations, different legislation. There's a whole lot of factors that go into that. But certainly this is one aspect to improve education and awareness among the general public. Now, obviously, driver training is a critical component of this, whether that's at the commercial motor vehicle level and entry-level driver training, but also for general driver education and driver education in schools when people are getting their licenses at 16, 17, 18 when they're young. So that's really another part of this component is part of this campaign is educating drivers when they're just beginning to start out driving, that they can kind of be aware of these vehicles and the different, tactics that need to be understood, whether that's, making yourself being visible, preparing for wide turns, staying alert and undistracted is obviously a big thing that we see within the last couple decades, and really kind of distracted driving being a main culprit in some of the higher crash rates that we continue to see not only in the trucking industry, but across all highways and all vehicles.
Well, let's move on to another topic here, and it also involves FMCSA. The agency is extending the emergency order that was issued in the wake of the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. And, of course, this is something that's really disrupted things there on the East Coast. What are the basics of this emergency order, and who does it apply to at this point?
Right. So, unfortunately, we saw the bridge collapse in late March. There was an initial 2-week emergency declaration that FMCSA put out, and then we saw kind of a broader extension of that was going to expire on May 8th. FMCSA now has extended that emergency relief for commercial motor vehicles providing direct assistance through June 8th. And the latest emergency extension maintains the same provisions for direct assistance. And it includes transportation related to the immediate restoration of essential services at the Port of Baltimore, transportation of commodities rerouted due to disruptions to vessel traffic into the port, and then transportation of gas, ethanol, propane, natural gas, heating oil in kind of the local Maryland region. We have seen a lot of disruption since the bridge collapse, but I think we have also seen a great deal of federal, local, state response in making sure that the supply chain, experiences as less disruption as possible. And I think for the most part, we've witnessed that due to a lot of coordinated response so far, including this latest extension of the emergency declaration. We've seen detours in and around the Baltimore region put in place, a lot of outreach from FMCSA, from DOT to industry stakeholders. I think we're going to continue to see that. Certainly, we're starting to see some of the funding efforts make their way through Congress. And then we've also seen a lot of federal response on the ground in Baltimore, opening up some different alternative port channels, which have kind of helped things rebound. But it's still going to be a years-long process, not only to kind of get the short-term efforts in and around the port, but to rebuild the bridge at some point. I think that's still the goal from everything we hear from the Maryland representatives. And so far, so good, but a lot of more work to be done.
You mentioned the fact that this is a years-long process, and obviously building a bridge of that scale is going to be, and it's going to take years. Are we likely to see more extensions of this emergency order or follow-up orders or something like that as we go forward into the future for some time, I would think?
Right. I think at least for the next few months, we're probably going to continue to see extensions. Might be modified depending on how the progress is moving. Yes, I think this won't be the last extension that we will see. But certainly progress is being made day in and day out, both at the site of the collapse, but also regionally and nationally in response to the supply chain disruptions.
You mentioned detours, and one of the interesting things here to me is that the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, is taking public comments on possible alternative routes to Interstate 695, which ran over the bridge. Usually when something like this happens, we just get a detour and they send us on. And why are they taking public comment on something that seems kind of obvious?
Yeah, I think it's one to kind of get some additional feedback on if there are some better routes that they can open up. Some of the alternate bridges right now. So the bridge that collapsed was a main artery for trucks, especially transporting hazmat materials and oversized trucks getting across Baltimore. Bridge, the average daily traffic in 2023 was approximately 34,000 vehicles a day. With that bridge out of service, there are the main bridges and tunnels through Baltimore, directly through the city, have prohibitions on hazmat and oversized vehicles. So those vehicles got to go all the way around kind of the Baltimore region, kind of a longer route. There are some other ways you can kind of get through the eastern shore of Maryland. So that's kind of going to get some feedback through this public comment period on what FHWA can do, what the Maryland Departments of Transportation maybe can do to further alleviate the traffic that's moving through Baltimore. So that public comment period just opened, going to be opened through early June. And perhaps we might see some alternative routes being developed, kind of going in and around Baltimore to further make traffic better, make congestion better. So kind of one to watch out for there from the Federal Highway Administration.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, in the meanwhile, if people can avoid the Baltimore area entirely, probably a good idea.
Yeah, and we continue to see a lot of the port traffic that's going in through Baltimore getting moved down to different areas across the East Coast. I think that process has been pretty efficient so far, and I think a lot of the early fears that this was going to shut down everything along the East Coast have been avoided. But I think there's still some minor improvements that can be made, and certainly DOT, Maryland, other agencies are working on those.
Excellent. Well, Jay, thank you very much for the updates.
Yes, sir.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibrotech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibrotech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Every week we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. ELDs have long been unpopular in trucking, and one of the things that makes them unpopular is the lack of flexibility, which means that in many situations, circumstances over which truckers have little control can cause them to go over hours. Some truckers are trying to cope in a not-so-proper way, and a way station has figured that out.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how you doing?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
Doing great, thank you very much. Where are you at right now?
I am at the Speedway fuel stop at Calvert City, Kentucky. It's I-24, exit 27. My next stop, I'll be traveling on Friday, and it'll be at the Speedway fuel stop in Monroe, Ohio. And that's I-75, exit 29. And I'll be there the 11th and the 12th. And the folks at Speedway were kind enough to drop off some coupons for either a free Big Gulp, a free Small Slurpee, or a taquito. So if you're in the area and you would like a freebie, then stop in the trailer and we'll get you one.
Well, fantastic. Who doesn't want a taquito and a Big Gulp?
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that truckers are bringing to you right now, because there's a lot going on out there. And one of the things that you dropped me a note about involves ELDs in the state of Minnesota. What's happening up there, Marty?
Yeah, I got a report from one of our members that over at the scale on the east side of the state off of I-94, when you're leaving Wisconsin coming into Minnesota, that they have been stopping people on the scale and wanting to look at their ELD because apparently there's a big construction area just on the other side of the state line there in Wisconsin that's a big backup, and they're finding drivers that are putting themselves off duty during that time they're waiting. And of course, you know, that's against the rules. And so they're catching people basically falsifying their logbook. And it's just a quick, easy way for them to look. And some of the time we as drivers forget that they also talk to each other. The DOT guys, Highway Patrol, talk to each other in the other states. And they really know what's going on, especially when it's close by. And some of the time that can put us in a bad situation if we're trying to save some time.
Oh, boy. Something else up there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I said, you just got to be careful. And, you know, one of the bad things about turning yourself off anytime that you're still going to have the opportunity to move and you're on the highway, you know, if you get in an accident, it doesn't matter whose fault, it's going to be yours because you were doing wrong on your ELDs. So it's going to really look bad for you.
Yeah, you can't play with that stuff. Not at all. Well, let's talk about another topic here that's likely to get me into trouble here, and that's LED lights. And I'm assuming here we're talking about headlights?
Well, there's all sorts of LED lights out there, and I mean, they're great. You know, LED lights have kind of saved us from having to replace our bulbs in our lights We used to have to do it fairly often. And now the LED lights are lasting longer. The problem, of course, in bad weather, in snow and that, they don't run hot enough to actually melt off any snow or ice. But what's been brought to my attention here lately is the LED light bars that some of the guys put on the front of their truck. And I'm assuming as a driver, as you're driving it, that whole road is really lit up very well. But for anybody that's coming in the opposite direction or passing you and seeing that really bright light bar, it doesn't do the other driver very good. And some of the time, I think that we as drivers, we do this alone so often that you are kind of just doing your own thing, and too many times we don't look at what effect what we do has on other drivers out there. So it's not all about just you seeing that road better. It's about possibly blinding that other driver, and that can cause you just as much headaches as not being able to see the road very well.
Well, I'm kind of curious, Marty, because you mentioned those light bars, and I've seen those things on oversized pickup trucks, and they're pretty blinding on those. But with the kind of headlights you have on a tractor trailer, why would you need a light bar on top of that?
Well, I kind of relate it to the fog lights that the guys used to have on their trucks, and that would help them see a little bit better on the road. But nowadays, with the LED lights that we're using, they really do light up the roads well. And possibly I don't know if they just feel like they need that extra bit during the night. But like I said, it's just causing problems from other people. Yeah, I've seen it on the pickups a lot, but here lately I've not only seen it, but been being talked to about it here in the trailer, about guys seeing it more and more on big trucks.
That's kind of surprising that they would need that extra light up there. As it is, I've heard some folks complain about just the brightness of just the LED headlights, even if you don't have the light bar.
Yep, yeah, I've had some complaints on that too. I haven't found too many myself lately that really bother me. There for a while, they were having those kind of blue tinted ones that to me were a little harsh by looking at them. But most of the regular ones that aren't amplified do fairly well and don't blind everybody else.
Okay. Well, we got a couple of minutes left here, Marty, and there was one other thing that you were interested in talking about, and that is this lawsuit about a guy who used a train horn, and someone claimed that the horn affected their hearing?
Yeah, that was kind of a weird deal when I read that article about this lawsuit. And, the lawsuit went against the guy that had the train horn, and it's just under $2 million verdict. Now, the state apparently has tort reform there, so it sounds like it might get brought back down to the $1 million mark. That's the limit there in Mississippi there. So it's still a lot of money for something that you might think is cool. But this really sounded like almost like a real train horn that you could get off of a train. And at least that's the way it looked like it was marketed. And they were saying the decibel level was 145. And I'm not a person that knows all that, but I know that I've heard some really, really loud horns out there. And I mean, people put, a big lever on beside their seat and an extra air tank for some of these air horns. And I just look and kind of wonder if any of those ones that I've heard either at truck shows or just out on the road, what kind of decibel level they are, putting out, and could they find themselves in that same position where, this was a construction site, and if you're that close to somebody and you lay on that air horn, you could actually do some damage. And I would have never thought it would be loud enough to actually do damage to somebody's hearing, but apparently it did.
Yeah, I hear you, so to speak. Well, Marty, we're running out of time. Any final words before you ride off into the sunset?
Hey, guys, just, be kind to one another and give that guy next to you a break.
Brothers highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That includes truck stops, truck shows, and other special events across the country. Again, you can find that at our website, landlinenow.com, and you can also find the Spirit's complete schedule at ooida.com. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.